Hello guys, welcome to Security Red versus Blue Team channel. So in this video, we're mainly discussing on what are the introduction to ethical hacking topics. So in our previous video, we discussed about the networking basics, which mainly includes the LAN, WAN, and other important protocols, and what is a VPN and proxy, and many other different steps. So if any of you have not watched the video, please do check out the link in the description. So let's get started with the topics of introduction to ethical hacking. So in this video, we'll be covering on what is ethical hacking basics and what are the different type of hackers and what is the common terminologies that is being used and what are the different stages of hacking and what is the security triangle and some of the different protocols that were missed to be covered in the previous video, which is mainly DSCP, DNS, and ARP. So let's move on to the next slide. So what is hacking? So hacking is like exploitation of the system vulnerabilities and compromising the security controls, mainly to gain unauthorized access and inappropriate access to the system resources. The main agenda is in the behind the hacking is to the make use of application feature which is not designed to be used, which is breaking into the system beyond the main original purpose. So what is ethical hacking? So ethical hacking is like it's an involvement of authorized attempt mainly to get unauthorized access. So here the ethical hacking involves mainly the usage of hacking tools and tricks or techniques that is used by the proper hackers, mainly to identify the vulnerabilities that are there in the system. So, who are called hackers? The hackers are the ones who are intelligent fellows who spend enormous amount of time in researching and exploiting the computing resources. Um, so why ethical hacking is necessary? So the ethical hacking, the reason because ethical hacking necessary because it allows the counting of attacks from malicious hackers by anticipating the methods they can use to break into the system. This is mainly to prevent the hackers from gaining the access to the information breaches, or to build a system that avoids hackers from penetrating, or to build a system, the organization security settings in a safe and secure manner than the before, and also to the fight against the terrorism and national security breaches. So these are some of the important things that keeping in focus the ethical hacking is necessary nowadays. So moving on to the next topic, which is what are the different types of hackers. So we do come across different type of hackers like black hat hackers, white hat hackers, gray hat hackers, suicide hackers, spy hackers, script kiddies, and the sponsored hackers. It could be state or nation level sponsored hackers and hacktivists. So if you look at the brief description about the different types, so black hat hacker is the one. It's typically engaged in the cybercrime operations, kind of illegal activities, and always violates the laws, which is always against the ethical standards. So that's what the black hat hackers do. When it comes to white hat hackers, it is like an ethical hacker who has the control over the system, where they will be doing the things with the consent of the owner, and this is mainly done in the purpose of identifying the vulnerabilities to ensure that the black hat hackers doesn't take over the advantage of the known vulnerabilities. And if you look at the gray hat hackers, the gray hat hacker is it's like a combination of both white hat and black hat hackers, but usually the intention is not to have the malicious intent, malicious intent, which is similar to the black hat hacker. When it comes to suicide hackers are typically the less skilled ones. They're just capable of gaining the access to the system, whereas they don't have much expertise or knowledge in breaking down to bringing the system to the lowest level where no one could access it. So their kind of beginners are the low skilled hackers. So when it comes to the spy hackers, as the name itself says, that these hackers mainly use the hacking to spy on the others' activities. It could be like a cyber warfare, or it can be any cyber espionage. And when it comes to the script kiddies are the ones which are these are the category of people, again, like unskilled ones who always uses the scripts that are developed by or the programs that is developed by any other experts to exploit some of the known vulnerabilities. It could be like DOS attacks or anything. Then, if we move on to the other one, the hacktivists, or the state-sponsored hackers. The state-sponsored hackers are the ones these are being used by the cyber criminals, which are directly linked to the national state. So their goal is mainly to identify and exploit national infrastructure vulnerabilities, and also to gather the intelligence about the system, about the target system. And then we have the hacktivist. So hacktivist, these are like a group of criminals, who unite to carry out the cyber attacks, with respect to the political usages. So here, typically the people target the entire industry, or it could be sometimes a specific organization. And these guys usually target the systems where people don't follow their political views or practices. So these are the other different kind of, and there are a few other categories as well. So these are the known the types of hackers that we usually see on the daily basis. So let's move on to the next slide. In this video, here we have the common terminologies. So when it comes to common terminologies, the vulnerability, exploit, payload, zero day attack, threat, risk. And so there are many other different terms, and here we have highlighted the few important terms that will be used, that will be regularly come across. So vulnerability. So what is vulnerability? So vulnerability is like it's like a weakness or in the design or an implementation of a system. It can also be called as a loophole in the system, which mainly allows an attacker to gain access to the system by brute force or either bypassing the authentication mechanism. So what is exploit? So exploit, it is like a piece of code which contains a sequence of commands to take advantage of the vulnerability in the system, and mainly to cause unintended or uninterrupted behavior. So what is payload? So payload is a set of commands or actions that will be executed once once the exploit is successfully launched on the target machine. So the best example would be like DOS or DDoS attacks. And what is zero day attack? So zero day attack is like one where the exploit find out the vulnerability in the system which is publicly available, and try to exploit, and they disclose the complete exploit details, where the even before the official fix, the patch released by the developer. So this is the best example for the in the history will be the Stuxnet zero day attack. So if we move on to the next slide, what are the different stages of hacking? So when it comes to any hacking stage, if we need to hack a particular target, first we need to find out the information about the target. That stage we call as information gathering. So it could be through active information gathering or through passive information gathering. So we call it as information gathering or reckoning step. So once the information is found out, like what is the IP address and other details, we try to scan the system. So once the system is scanned, we try to find out if there is any vulnerable applications or the loopholes that is available. So from the scanning report, we get to know that okay, there are some vulnerabilities, and we make use of those vulnerabilities and try to gain the access through multiple ways. So once the access is gained, we need to maintain the access to run all our payloads and retrieve the data, or maybe to bring down the system. So once that is done, all the hacker prerequisites are hacker tasks are completed. The final stage will be to clear the tracks to ensure that the no trace is found for the intrusion detection system. And moving on to the next one, so security triangle. So in security triangle, so before going to the security triangle, so we need to discuss on the core elements of information security, which is confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So confidentiality is one thing where it refers to the leakage of sensitive data. So if we take any vulnerability which is available in the market, and so in case if it says like there is no leakage of the data, then the confidentiality will be very low. So if the confidentiality is very high, then there is a more chances that the leakage of the information is very high. So next comes the integrity. So integrity, similar way, if there is no possibility for attacker to modify any of the system files or anything, then we treat it as integrity is very low. If the attacker is able to modify all the files or any other configuration settings in the system, then we treat it as integrity is very high. Then it leads to the high critical factor, even when it comes to the risk rating of a vulnerability as well. Similarly, the availability also. In case, let's say we have a website called facebook.com or something. And if attacker is able to take over that website and bring down the resources, if the application is not accessible, then it causes a major impact. So in this case, the availability will be very high. So we need to ensure that availability is very low, so that post exploitation, the system doesn't give much control to the attacker. So if you look at the security triangle as we discussed before, so the level of security in any organization or any system can be defined by the strength of three components. One is uh, the security and usability and functionality triangle. So we call it as the three terms as in the form of a triangle. So whenever there is a security is high, the usability or functionality of the system will be very low. When the usability high, security and functionality will be low. When the functionality is high, the usability and the security will be very low. So I think the nowadays organizations are focusing more on these three things to fill up the gap. And this is one of the common term which is there in the security, which is security triangle. And when it comes to the information security, we call it as a CIA, which is confidentiality, integrity, and availability. This is another important term. So moving on to the last slide, which is the protocols. This were missed to cover in our previous video. So DHCP, DNS, and ARP. So DHCP is a dynamic host configuration protocol. This is mainly used to assign the IP addresses. Thus, the main responsibility of a DHCP protocol is to for manage and the automatic configuration of IP address. So whenever a new system comes into the network, let's say there are 10 systems in the network, and there is one server is DHCP. And if new client comes into the network, it tries to find out if there is any DHCP server. So it tries to send a request. So DHCP server responds with a offer saying like, okay, I have these many IP addresses. Then client requests for, okay, provide me this IP address, and DHCP acknowledges with IP. So that's how the IP allocation will be done. So when it comes to the DNS, which is a domain name server, so which is similar to the internet book or phone book, or it kind of a database where it's like a directory where it maintains domain names and translate them into IP addresses. So let's say I need to browse a website. So what will I do? I'll log into my system, and I'll hit google.com or facebook.com. Then the request will go to the domain name server, and domain name server will translate that domain into an IP address. So once it is translated into an IP address, then the request will go to the actual host server of that IP where the website is hosted. So that's how DNS works. And as in there's this typical world, we can't remember all the IP address of any websites, each website. So that is the reason the DNS is evolved. And the last, which is address resolution protocol. So ARP is also used to find the MAC address of a IP address, and it maintains a ARP cache table in a computer memory, where each time it receives a broadcast, ARP broadcast, or it sends out a broadcast, ARP broadcast. So it maintains the records of IP address and the MAC entries of a particular IP that is being sent. Yeah. So this is with respect to the protocols that we missed to cover. So we are done with the topics of introduction to ethical hacking. So in our next video, we'll be covering the some of the practicals, mainly like installation of Kali Linux, and what are the different VPNs that will be used mainly to hide the physical presence, and what is the MAC flooding. So these common things we will be mainly covering in the next video. So please do watch the video, like, share, comment, and subscribe to let us know for any queries in the comment. Thanks once again for watching.